Hello again, it's Aenslee here, back for video 4 of my New Year's resolution challenge to get in front of the camera more for some impromptu speaking. So here I am again, I'm glad to see you. And today I thought I'd talk about a question that I get quite often, especially in this day and age, and that came in specifically through the survey that I submitted to the folks that are on my newsletter list a few months ago. And this is a question that's quite popular, and it's all about how do I find a career that I'll love? And I have lots of thoughts on this, having changed careers numerous times myself. So I'd love to share some resources with you, along with my biggest tip and piece of advice for this area. First of all, though, I think it's a really important backdrop to this conversation about careers in this day and age to address the rate of change that we're experiencing at the moment. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but if you are not familiar with the terms exponential change, the fourth industrial revolution, or the future of work, then I'd like to point you in the direction of some resources to investigate, because the long story short, the change that we're starting to see in the world of work at the moment is only the tip of the iceberg that folks are predicting, futurists are predicting, we're going to be seeing in the coming years. So given that, I think it's really important to acknowledge that if we're talking about what career you might be considering going forward, I think it's really worthwhile investigating what are the skills that are going to help you future-proof your career, what are the jobs that we can expect to see in the future, and which ones are going to be going away. I think those are important considerations. So a few resources for you. The Singularity Hub blog has an article on how to think exponentially. That's the blog out of the Singularity University platform, started by Ray Kurzweil and Peter Diamandis. So a great resource for all sorts of futuristic predictions. Highly recommend that. And they'll talk you through. They have that How to Think Exponentially article talks all about that exponential rate of change and how we're just right at the cusp of about to see the rate of change take off. So fascinating stuff there. The World Economic Forum, I highly recommend their website as well. They have lots of resources around the fourth industrial revolution, as well as the predictions around jobs of the future and the skills that'll be needed and so forth. So great tools there. And third, the Wait But Why blog, I also get a kick out of. So I'd recommend that for you as well. And they have an article on the AI revolution where they also talk through and have some nice cartoon images to really make it practical of what exponential change looks like and why human beings are not so good at shifting from thinking linearly to thinking exponentially. So that's another resource for you. So I just wanted to put that out there before we dive into speaking about careers, because this VUCA world, as they talk about, the volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity that we're just starting to see is only going to become amplified in the future. So important to consider that. Okay, that said, how do you find a career that you'll love? I think this is a really tough one, and I think fondly on the TED Talk from Barry Schwartz, the author of The Paradox of Choice. It's a TED Talk by the same name, really entertaining. Highly recommend that if you want to check that out. He talks about, with all the changes going on, we have access to so many more choices, but this can also be paralyzing, right? This can be a difficult thing to choose when you have so many options. So this is a difficult question to contend with, but I'd pose to you two maybe big picture questions to help you start filtering your thinking in order to get down to this ideal career that's going to be the right fit for you. One is the question, well, what is work to you? As in, how does work fit into your picture of your life? Is work for you just a job where you earn money and enough to support your lifestyle, and then you want to get out of there as soon as possible and get into the life part of your life, if you will? So looking for more of a work-life balance kind of a scenario, or is work to you your purpose in life? Is it where you contribute? Is that where you get fulfillment? Is that something that you want to put your heart and soul into? And it's something more than just money for you. I'm not saying there's a right or wrong either way. It's all about you identifying what's important to you. I just think that's an important consideration to be clear with yourself up front, because identifying what criteria you're going to be measuring any job against is important to identifying whether or not you're hitting the right mark. Another question, just big picture, that I'd pose to you as well is, what kind of lifestyle do you want to have? And how does your work fit into that? Is a job that's very clearly 9 to 5 and never weekends, is that very important to you? Even working less than that, if possible, then that's going to drive you towards making different decisions on your career path than if you're looking for something where, say, location independence is important, or autonomy, or something where you maybe work 6 months on and then take 6 months off, right? So I think it adds to the complexity of the decision, but it's also, what an amazing time to live in, that we can kind of ponder some of these questions. So I think getting clear for yourself on some of the big picture things about what you want, what kind of direction you want to head in, what your ideal future looks like, is important before you narrow down to any specific sort of career or job in particular. All right. Now, all of that said, my biggest tip for you in terms of choosing a career, I'd like to put to you in the form of an analogy or a metaphor. I can never remember which is which. But to think about choosing a career as like you're running a scientific experiment. So if you were running a science experiment, you'd form a hypothesis, you'd run your experiment, you'd track the data, and you'd use that data to inform your decision going forward, forming a new hypothesis, and so on and so on. Like, that would be the process that you would use. And I think that's a really valid way to approach a career nowadays, to consider, look at things like, what am I curious about? What appeals to me? What were those criteria that I was looking for in that dream job, in terms of what I wanted to get out of my work, and explore the areas that seem to fit those criteria. And then try it out, dip your toe in, give it a go, and you'll get data from that experience of having tried it. I think where a lot of people get stuck is they try to find their ideal career in their head, thinking they're not going to take a step until they've come up, identified exactly what it is mentally. And the thing is, you're never going to know until you try. And the more you try, the more you go out there and experiment, if you will, the more data you're going to have coming back to you that you can use to inform future decisions. So I think that experimentation is hands down like the biggest tip I could give you. That said, I totally have to acknowledge I am biased in this manner. I have changed careers numerous times. Just to give you a quick overview, I studied, for those who don't know, I studied polymer engineering at university in the United States. I worked as an engineer in Germany before making my first career change into public policy and moving to New Zealand. Then I moved into management consulting, and only after that did I start my own businesses working in leadership coaching and personal branding. So it's been quite I've dipped my toe into all sorts of different areas trying to find what is that thing that for me is going to bring me the sense of fulfillment that I'm looking for. So yes, you totally should consider the bias of the messenger whenever you're listening to somebody's advice. But I can certainly say from my own experience that has proved really valuable for me. Trying out many different things, seeing what fit, what I liked, what I didn't, in terms of finding the place where now I feel like I have my ideal world of, it meets the work that I do meets my needs for autonomy. I'm in total control running my business. I get to make the decisions I want to make, work on the things that I want to work on. It's extremely fulfilling for me doing the work that I do, deep personal work with individuals where I can work one-on-one and help them with something meaningful in their life. Completely transformational, and that means so much to me in terms of making an impact in the world. It gives me a chance to give back. I'm running my own business as well. Yes, I have paid programs and paid coaching and things like that, but I also have the chance to offer free programs to the public. So you might have even seen on my Facebook page recently, I posted a whole bunch of events. I love it that the start of the year, I quite often just run free programs of events, give people the chance, with no financial commitment necessary to just get some career advice, get the new year started off on the right foot. And that's another way that I can give back. And so for me, it's not about so much the number of hours that I work. for me, but I'm getting so much fulfillment and a sense of contribution through the work that I do. And it meets my desires for flexibility and autonomy and things like that. So that's all been discovered through, as I say, lots of experimentation. There's a commencement speech from Steve Jobs did at Stanford where he talks about you can only connect the dots in hindsight. And I think that's so true. You know, I look back now and I can see how, I learned this at that job and this at that job, and this is how I ended up where I'm at. But I never could have predicted back when I was, say, choosing a major in university that I was going to end up as a leadership coach. I mean, even what is that? Like that didn't exist for me as a possibility back when I was studying. So certain things you can only learn through experience and through experimentation. So I think there's definitely truth to only being able to connect the dots in hindsight, but you've got to be able to take a step first in order to discover what that is. Now, if you are feeling like you're paralyzed, like, what is it, analysis paralysis, because you've just been exploring so much, you don't know what step to take, you have all these ideas, but you don't know where to go. I think a useful resource I'd point you to is the TED Talk by Tim Ferriss on fear setting. He talks about fear setting rather than goal setting. And I think that is a useful tool, especially when you're in a situation where you feel like you're kind of holding yourself back. Like you know there are possibilities, you could try, but somehow you can't get yourself to try any of them. I'd highly recommend that fear setting exercise by Tim Ferriss. I think it's really important to acknowledge that even if we think, just to reframe this for anybody who might be feeling stuck, even if you think you're not making a choice by choosing any of those different careers that you think look interesting, you're making the choice then to stay stuck where you are, right? And it's a cognitive bias of humans that we feel more comfortable with the discomfort of the certainty of our discomfort in the current environment than we do with the uncertainty of a new environment. However, I think that fear setting comes into place that need to recognize you're making a decision based on fear if you're not willing to try something new and try to get out of the situation that you're feeling stuck in or maybe not so fulfilled in, right? A couple of other resources I just throw out there if we're talking about career, loving your career. One is Daniel Pink has a book called Drive, where our motivation at work comes from. And he talks about autonomy, mastery, and purpose being 3 keys. So he has a book as well as a TED Talk on that topic. If you're interested in learning more about those kind of keys to feeling motivated at work, to see if you can maybe customize the work that you do, the environment that you're working in to get those needs met if you don't feel they're being met for you now. I would also point you in the direction of Cal Newport. He's the author of So Good They Can't Ignore You. If you don't like to read, then he also has videos and podcasts where he's talked about this same topic, but he has lots of great advice on how to choose a career as well. There's also one of my favorite TED Talks of all time, and as you can tell, I watch a lot of them, but it's by Ruth Chang, who is a lawyer turned philosopher, and she talks about how to make hard choices. Great TED Talk, highly recommend it. And the kind of thesis of the talk, I'd say, is ultimately, getting clear on who is it you want to be and what role does your career play in that? So kind of some of the bigger questions that I was posing earlier, that TED Talk does a great job of kind of outlining the logic for why you might want to bring some of that into your decision-making process. There's also a website I'd like to recommend to you called 80,000 Hours. That's 80000.org. And that's a site that has lots of advice around how to choose a career where you can make an impact. So if for you, finding a career that you love means making a difference in the world in some kind of a meaningful way, working for a cause that's important, near and dear to your heart, then that website could potentially help you with figuring out where you can make your biggest impact. So 80,000hours.org. And I'd also, I suppose, if the idea of just jumping in with both feet into a new career seems just too scary and overwhelming, also think about the baby steps that you could take. Maybe it's just about exploring something that you're curious about via an online course, you know, like one of the many MOOCs that are available now, the massive open online courses, you know, through Coursera or edX or iTunes University or whatever. There's a bazillion platforms out there now. But maybe just, you know, try a course, dip your toe in, explore an area, see where your curiosity leads you, and hopefully that will be a great indicator of something that might be worth pursuing. But that's kind of a lower risk way for you to test the waters, if you will. So definitely don't feel like the only way to do it is to jump in both feet, like how in my career I've described, just, you know, completely trying something new. It could be, you know, just testing something out. Maybe it's volunteering somewhere that you might be interested in supporting, or doing a side project, or maybe doing a cross move, like into another department in your own organization. If you're in operations, but you'd like to try out maybe something more creative or like marketing related, maybe you already have something in your existing organization that you could just try out. Fundamentally, I just keep coming back to the advice: experiment. What's an experiment you could run to try to figure out what that career that you'll love is going to be? So I think I'll wrap it up there. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments, and I'll be happy to come back to you. Otherwise, I will see you in another video again soon. Bye, guys.